So we're going to take kind of the scenic route on this story, add a little bit more texture to the tale, and maybe make it a little bit more interesting than just the raw brute facts of the issue. You may have noticed some stuff being talked about, particularly on Twitter. I spoke about this at the end of my last news radar on Friday. The Pixel 6a is announced, pre-orders are live, and so forth. And a thing a lot of people are talking about as one of the biggest knocks against the device is the low refresh rate screen, only 60 hertz, when phones like the Nothing phone, some of Samsung's phones in the same price range, OnePlus has phones in the same price range, I'm fairly sure, that all have high refresh rate screens. So a lot of reviewers have pointed that out and said, hey, got a lower refresh rate screen than some of these competitors. Now, there's things about the 6A that are obviously better than some of these other phones, but this is an aspect where it is not better. And so this was pointed out in some reviews, and this got a lot of people a little bit upset. A lot of people were jumping to the defense of this particular spec on this particular device, and I talked about that, like I said, at the end of my last episode of News Radar. Now, while I do obviously think it's totally reasonable to point out a specification on a device, an aspect of a device that is inferior to devices it is directly competing with, you may be wondering, what does this have to do with the title of this video? This video is supposed to be about Apple, right? So why am I talking about the Pixel 6a? Well, there was an extended conversation about this after this video was filmed, and I want to show you a particular tweet from Ike's Tech Talk, who, by the way, is a YouTuber you should be subscribed to here as well, because they make really good content and they are a genuinely very nice person. So I will drop a link to them in the description. Go give them a sub. This is what this conversation said. I basically said what I've been saying. The review should be all-encompassing. 6A has a good camera, flagship SoC, and a mediocre screen. The A53 has a decent camera, mid-range SoC, and a great screen. You have to inform the viewer of the compromises just as much as the places that we're focused on. Ike's response was, we agree on this 100%. What I don't agree with is mentioning it for this phone specifically, yet come iPhone season, those devices don't get penalized the same for not having it. If a consumer cares about it on a cheap phone, they should care about it on an expensive phone as well. And I have to admit, I've got a bit of a blind spot when it comes to Apple and iPhones. I don't really watch their reviews. I don't really cover their phones. I personally don't really care about them all that much. But after seeing this conversation, this tweet sent to me, what I did is I went and I watched a few iPhone reviews because I wanted to see, like, okay, I'm aware that a lot of iPhones have low refresh rate screens. Only the top tier, most recent ones have the high refresh. Are they being talked about? Are people mentioning this lower, the 60 hertz refresh rate on iPhone? So I watched some reviews, and lo and behold, no, not really. Pretty much nobody talked about it. And I understand that there's a difference between refresh rate and frame rate, right? So the refresh rate is how fast the screen is refreshing. The frame rate is decoupled from that. That's how many frames are being delivered by the SoC to the display. So these are different things. You can run at 60 hertz and have a 40 FPS frame rate and look choppy. You can have a 60 hertz refresh rate and 60 FPS and actually look pretty good. So the frame rate really matters, and I do know iPhones run at higher frame rates than a lot of Android operating systems, or they seem to, at least in the past. So that's why sometimes iPhones look smoother than Android phones at the same refresh rate. I digress. None of this really matters because, again, 60 hertz, pretty heavily criticized on the Pixel 6a as being a really, it's maybe one of its biggest faults, that and the lack of wireless charging, perhaps. But on the iPhones, yeah, he's right. They don't really get knocked for this. So what's going on here? Why is that happening? And that's where we get into the spicy bit of this. And before we go any further, I just want to let everybody know something very, very important. We are not going to be dragging creators in the comments. If you want to speak broadly about what we're going to be talking about, okay, that's fine. But if you mention a specific creator and you make an accusation against them without evidence of whatever your accusation is, I'm going to delete your comment, okay? Speak broadly. Let's not go out of our way to be to people, okay? We're going to try and keep this somewhat civil. Let's now get into, like I said, the spicy bit of this. The tech YouTuber John4Lakers on Twitter, John Rettinger, you may remember him from Techno Buffalo back in the day. He's doing his own thing now. He posted a video the other day that is one of the craziest videos I've seen in the tech space in a really long time. And I'm going to link to his video in the description. You should watch the whole thing from start to finish, including his ad in the middle. Gotta get paid somehow, right? But what he alleges in this video is wild. I'm going to kind of give you a truncated version of here because we're already getting a little bit long in the tooth on this video. A few years back, I think he said about 4 years ago, around the time of the iPhone XR-ish, that area, if I'm remembering correctly, John got a hold of some dummy units for an iPhone. And before Apple's keynote was live, he posted a video holding this dummy unit, describing what it would look like, so forth and so on. Apple did not like this for different reasons. They said it looked like we sent you an iPhone early, and that's going to make some of our other partners angry. It doesn't look good. They asked John to remove his video, to pull it down. He says he did this. He was afraid maybe of making Apple angry, getting cut off. He says he wasn't getting review units from Apple, but he was routinely invited to their keynotes and just had somewhat of a working relationship with them. He didn't want to threaten that. Maybe he was a little intimidated. I don't know. I don't want to, put mindsets in his head that weren't there, but make your own assumptions. Again, watch this video to hear his own words about it. But he pulled the video down. He says he regrets doing that, but it is what it is. I can totally understand. You get a phone call from a rep from Cupertino, from Apple, telling you, we want you to pull this video down. I would feel some pressure. Like, that's tough. That's a lot. So he pulls the video down. Okay, whatever. A couple months go by. He's reviewing the iPhone XR, and his device is buggy. It's got a lot of problems. He goes and he buys a second one. Keep in mind, these are devices he's purchasing, okay, not sent by Apple. Purchased one, it was buggy, purchases a second one, it's just as buggy. He reaches out to his iPhone rep. They take his IMEI or something like that so they can read the logs from the phone. They're working on like what's going on with these devices, so they're going to try to fix it. He says he reaches out to this rep multiple days in a row, like 3 days in a row, never hears anything back. So he says, well, I've got to get my video out. I got to get my review out. In the tech space, if you put out your review, 2 weeks too late, you're going to cut your reviews in half. This is how this works. There's a pressure to be out there early. So John publishes his review. And then he gets a phone call from this Apple rep. And I think I'm just going to play what he says because I don't think I could say it any better than he does. And it's shocking.
Maybe around 2 o'clock, phone rings. Cupertino, area code. I answer it. Same Apple rep. And again, I've been doing this for a long time, and still, in my now like 15 years or so of doing YouTube videos, I've never been spoken to like I was spoken to on the phone. I was scolded like a child. How dare you not give us a chance to resolve these issues? How dare you put up a video? You didn't give us a chance to fix these problems. You didn't. I mean, it's a whole litany of I wouldn't say accusations, but I was being scolded like I talked to my children. I was like flabbergasted. Take the video down.
So as you saw, he posts the video. It's not very positive. Talks about the bugs. That Apple rep calls and basically seems like accosts him. Tries to get him to remove the video, to take it down. Very, very upset with him. And as John said, talked to him in a way that I don't think he was very appreciative of being talked to. This is a pretty shocking allegation. And now this is apparently 4 years on, right? I don't think there's any good reason to assume John is making this up. Now keep in mind, this is an accusation, right? We don't have like physical evidence of any of this, okay? But I think John is pretty credible. I think the story is pretty credible. And unfortunately, this story has ramifications. There are ripples to this. Of course, the end of the story is he got blacklisted. He's not had any contact, apparently, with Apple since then. They don't talk to him anymore, and he's just kind of on his own with Apple coverage. And he says that's fine. It is what it is, and everything's been fine since then. He just rolled on and lived his life, as it were. The ramifications of this, though, stretch far beyond John Rettinger or Techno Buffalo and into other YouTube channels. We go back to the early part of this discussion. Why is it that no one mentions 60 hertz on iPhones that are $800, but on Android phones, yeah, you're allowed to criticize all of it. You're allowed to break it down and give the pluses and the minuses of different devices. But on the iPhones, you don't talk about the refresh rate. Now, I'm not making the accusation that these other creators, these other YouTubers that have not talked about the refresh rate, have directly been told, do not talk about their refresh rate. Not making such a specific accusation against a specific person because I have no evidence to make this sort of accusation, and I probably wouldn't do it if I had the evidence because that's just not what I want to be doing. But that being said, as I went back and I watched some of these reviews that were all very, very positive, not a whole lot of criticism about these devices, a little bit, right? Hey, the battery life's not so great. You pair that with this information and it makes you wonder, how much pressure is there on these bigger creators to not lose the ability to get Apple hardware early, to lose that relationship, to seat at that keynote? How much pressure is on these creators to maybe see the iPhone through some rose-tinted glasses? Let me just tell you something. I'm someone who has, for a long time, made jokes on Twitter about wanting to be part of Team Pixel. If you don't know, true Team Pixel members get sent hardware to be reviewed. They get sent quite early, usually, before the device is actually out to the public, and they're able to get their videos out. For me, being part of Team Pixel would be pretty big. It would actually be very big. We're talking about the difference between me buying the Pixel 6a, getting it the 1st of August, and getting out a quick video about it that maybe gets a couple thousand views, to me getting out a review before the thing is out and probably getting tens of thousands of views, okay? Way more subscribers, way more money in my pocket, okay? Getting devices early is a really big deal. And you have to wonder from this, how many creators, we're talking about the Pixel 6a and a channel that's got like 11,000 some odd subscribers. Think about how much money is there to lose if you make Apple angry, like John did, and you're getting hardware from them. He already wasn't getting hardware from them, so he didn't lose that much. But imagine these other creators. You make Apple mad and they say, no more hardware for you. How much money did you just lose from that? If they are this sensitive, if they are this likely to come after you for a negative review. If this is true, like I said, ramifications for the perception to me of most Apple hardware reviews at this point. I don't know who I could possibly trust. Now, I do look at some really big channels, right? Like they just can't cut off, okay? I like Linus Tech Tips. I don't think they can properly cut off a channel that big, right? Because it's going to look suspicious. And I think Linus would probably just come out and say they cut us off, and that would make them look really bad. But these other like medium-sized channels, it makes you have to wonder. Now, you know, I'm not, like I said, we're not making accusations about this particular YouTuber that loves his iPhone. Oh, now we know why. I don't think iPhones are bad at all. I think iPhones are generally quite great phones. They're really, really solid phones. But this is something that I'm going to have in the back of my head from now on when I do look at coverage of the iPhone. I'm going to be wondering, was this creator scared of losing access when they wrote this piece, when they filmed this video? Guys, I would love to know what you think about all this in the comments down below. This is a big one. This is a big deal to me. This is a really scary thing for a smaller creator. And this makes Apple, for me, a company that even though I don't have any interest in working with, I really don't have any interest in working with now. This is how they treat people that cover their products. John is not their employee. He is a YouTuber. He is a tech journalist. And this is not how you treat journalists at all. This, to me, is quite wrong and just gross, if I'm being honest. It reminds me of how a lot of people were really mad, and I was with them when the Surface Duo came out and videos could only show the hardware, but they couldn't turn it on. That kind of reeked of, hey, there's a problem here and we're not letting you cover it. That was bad. Apple should not get a pass on their behavior. Guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe. Please do go watch John's full video. Until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.